There are two things that people do wrong. One is that they just jump in and be like, and this is what I always did. I'm just going to start this business. So I'm just going to, there it is. I've got the sign up. I'm going to do it. This is my business. Maybe not the best thing to do. But on the other side, there's the analysis paralysis where you just spend
Mm,
years and years and years doing business plans and analyzing and learning and you have to implement. So in there is a middle ground. Set yourself a deadline. I'm going to research this for 3 months, 6 months, and then I'm going to do it.
Welcome back to Elevate Your Business, a podcast where we discuss proven, transformative approaches to business growth and exit strategies. Join us as we talk to successful entrepreneurs, share new and profitable ideas, and help you grow wiser and wealthier so you can experience limitless success in both life and business. Now, here's your host, Adam Koós, business transition consultant and founder of Elevate and Exit at elevateandexit.com.
All right, everybody. So today we're having another episode of How I Built It. I love these things. These are my favorite things to do, honestly. For years and years and years, I've always loved to hear the stories of other business owners, entrepreneurs, how they got to where they were, the good, the bad, the ugly, and all the successes and fun things, lessons. And there's just not a lot out there like that. There's not like a Napster, and I'm dating myself by saying Napster. There's not really a Napster for these kinds of stories. So I've got Christine McCarran, owner of Beehive Brokerage and host of the podcast Women Creating Wealth. She went from less than 0 to 7-figure net worth starting at age 50. That's pretty impressive. At our office, we work with a lot of people, our average clients, 55 to 60 years of age. So, and a lot of these people are trying to, get retired, make work optional and stay that way. And to think that you did this from, at 50 years of age is pretty impressive. And you did it largely in part to real estate investing.
That's
So
true.
through Christine's coaching, courses, podcasts, books, she shares what she's learned and helps other women succeed, or I should say exceed their own expectations and create a legacy for their families. So Christine, thank you so much for hanging out and I guess bearing all for this personal story on you.
Thanks, Adam. I'm very happy to be here. And actually, it would have been more impressive if I'd started a lot younger, but
I don't know about that. I think that I guess in my eyes, well, the number one thing we hear all the time is I wish I would have started earlier. I was just talking to somebody earlier today about how society is set up in a way where we're told in high school that we need to know what we're going to do for a living, and when we're a junior or senior in high school, and then some of us go to school and we wish we wouldn't have gone to college, and then some of us go to college and it's like we spend all this money and we get a career afterward. And I have, I know some people very close to me, one person in particular who went and got a master's degree, and she started her job right after college. And after 9 months was like, nope, this is not for me, and changed gears. I know people who have gone from doing something in one career and very successfully, and then completely changed gears. I know a financial advisor that was in the business, successful practice for almost 20 years, and then decided it just wasn't for him anymore. He went back to school and got a nursing degree, and he's a nurse. I mean, so it's just, you just don't know how things are going to work out. So I actually am more impressed by people who are brave enough, I guess, to pivot later in life, or I don't know, that still have that burning desire to succeed, to keep the fire burning and do something later in life, and kind of like I don't want to say get born again per se, but I don't want to get religion
anyway.
into this podcast. That's not what I want to talk about. But the purpose of these How I Built It episodes is to talk to successful business owners and entrepreneurs like you, and just kind of hear your story. So I'm going to start way at the beginning. This is how I do every one of them. So I want to know, where did you grow up, and what was childhood like for you?
The majority of my childhood was in Kingston, New Hampshire, which is a little nowhere town. We didn't even have a grocery store. It was like a 25-minute drive just to get to a grocery store. And that was not my scene at all. I've discovered later I was a city person. I didn't like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I love to go on vacation to like maybe the mountains or something like that, but just to like kind of kick around this small town wasn't my scene. But it was fine. Everybody was nice. It was interesting.
Interesting.
But well, it
Yeah.
maybe not interesting, but it was, you know what, it was a bad thing about it is that it's really easy to be like unbelievably amazing in that kind of an environment, right? You're like, you don't have to work very hard to be in the top 5 of your class. You don't have to work very hard to exceed anyone in particular's expectations, but you also so I wasn't challenged a lot, I guess, is what I would say, and it
Okay.
might have been better for me if I were challenged a little more and didn't think I was just like this hot stuff, that
So you're
was
kinda
always gonna
bored?
do really well.
Did you feel bored? Is that what you're saying? Okay. Yeah.
Very bored.
Well, I mean, was there anything you experienced early in life that kind of ignited that entrepreneurial fire and, burning desire to succeed like I was talking about a second ago, or was that something that happened later?
I guess a thing I could point to because I had in that sort of a town, the whole aspiration of women was to, find a good husband, right? They used to say, "Oh, you go to college to get your MRS degree," and so, right, and I thought, "Pfft, I don't need to go to college. You know what I mean? I just thought didn't interest me, so I didn't go to college. Like, what's the point? I don't want to go and get married. And I was working in a company, and there was a woman there, a female saleswoman there, and she was just amazing. She was a top salesperson. She had this little, like, boy toy sort of guy that, and I just saw really for the first time a powerful woman who was not married, who was succeeding on her own. And it sort of hit me like, oh my gosh, I don't not only do I not have to get married, I can also be a really successful person not being married. And that she became sort of like a I guess not a role model in the traditional sense, but just a spark that ignited this idea that I could be a wealthy woman without having to just latch on to some guy. And another thing that happened, I was at a party and this woman was there. She was probably 5'2", this little skinny, tiny woman, and she said, "Oh, I gotta go because I've got a problem at one of my units." And she pulls out this wad of keys that's big as my fist, and I was like, and I thought, "Oh my gosh, that little person who you could blow away with a feather is a real estate investor. She owns her own real estate." And then that was another like revelation. So yeah, I guess I could have read more and found all these things out earlier, but there was no internet then, and you don't know what you don't know. So those were two pretty cool experiences that made me realize that women could do more than I was doing at that moment in
Yeah,
time.
almost like new paths that you didn't know previously existed. Yeah. What was your first job? The first job you ever had?
My first job was at King's department store, which is now defunct, no cause,
Doesn't
no, and through
exist.
no
Yeah.
fault of my own. It was like a Walmarty sort of place, and I was I had every job there. Worked my way all the way up to service desk, which was pretty exciting. But you know what discouraged me being there is I was working with people who had college degrees, and I thought,
Hmm.
"Okay, so it's the same thing, like, I need to get a 4-year degree to do this."
Right, seriously. What about did you have a favorite job growing up? The other jobs you did you have one you really liked that kinda stuck out?
I worked for my dad actually one summer. My dad was a bricklayer, and
Oh, wow.
I was his, laborer, basically. I was mixing cement and hauling stuff around, and that was, another sort of thing, like, not only can women do stuff, they can also be strong and build things, and so I was never I mean, I have friends who've never changed their own wiper blades, but that's definitely was never me.
What about, ending up in real estate? And maybe I'm jumping ahead too far here because normally, I don't think it's like you were saying earlier that you'd be more impressed if you started earlier, whereas this sounds like this is something you did later in life. What got you into the industry, into real estate? Was it that I mean, was it the stories you just told a second ago about the person that had the big, huge ring of keys or, was it something else?
It's interestingly, the first time I remember being really I mean, I've always loved buildings and architecture and things like that, but the first time I remember being really fired up about the idea is I was 16 and I was looking at the paper, and in the sales thing, there was a three-family house in Lawrence, Massachusetts, which at the time was kind of a, sketchy neighborhood, and it was like, I wanna say like $18,000. And I said to my
Mhm.
dad, like, "Dad, this is a three-family house, it's $18,000." And he just like, "Shut that right down." And so maybe that's why I delayed a little bit. But yeah, he was like, "Don't be ridiculous, you don't even wanna drive in that town, never mind own real estate, blah, blah, blah." And so I think I always had that bug about real estate, but it took me a while before I actually did anything about it. But when I did get married at 22, we did buy a house and we fixed it up, and then we bought a three-family in Lawrence, which I'd been dying to do, but now instead of being 18,000, it was like 114,000, and
Right.
that was the top of the market at that time. We lost it to foreclosure, so there I spent a whole 'nother decade saying, "I just suck as a real estate investor. I just don't have what it takes."
Yeah. That was a rough time.
Yeah. It was a rough time.
What prompted you then to start the business originally? What made you decide to go, I'm gonna be, I'm gonna do my own thing?
So I put real estate away for a while, and then I happened to, I was doing other stuff. I was actually, importing stuff, and being like a wholesaler.
Okay.
And I ran into a friend of mine who I hadn't seen for a long time, and I said, "Hey, what have you been up to?" And she said, "I just passed my real estate exam." And I was like, "Oh, wow. That's cool. Isn't it a terrible time to get into real estate?" Because it was 2005 or 2008 or something like that. I don't know. It was during the bottom of the last really good market. And she said, "Well, actually, I'm doing rentals in Boston," because we were living in the burbs. And I said, "Oh, wow." I said, "Do you think your person would hire me?" And she said, "Yeah." So I just spent the next couple days taking the course and getting my real estate license. And I went to the guy and I said, "Hey, I'd like to work for you." And he said, "Sure, great, no problem." And that was that. And then from there, even though I was doing rentals, I always wanted to do sales. So I started to navigate in that direction. And then I worked for that little boutique firm and then for Remax. And then when I relocated here to the north, back to the burbs again, I don't know how I keep ending up here, but then I decided rather than joining another firm, I would just start my own.
Okay.
So
Was
that's
it
why I have
hard?
Beehive
Was that
Brokerage.
difficult in the beginning?
Um, no, I don't think so. Most of my business has always been from referrals,
Okay.
so they don't really care what sign is on the door.
So you kinda made a pivot from being in the business, working for someone else, kinda built your book up, and then were able to start your own company from there.
Yeah.
Okay. And how did you decide to name it? And I'm always intrigued by the names.
Yeah, it is a weird name, and the and I it really was just a branding thing because one of my personal, real estate investments, is a commercial space, which I've turned into a co-working space.
Oh,
And so that because, the idea of, worker bees and little, cubes and pods that people can work in, like a honeycomb and all that kinda stuff, that's called Beehive Co-working. And so I said, rather than, have a different name for this thing, I'll just call it Beehive Brokerage. It's as good a name as anything, and it is kind of different
it
and
worked.
maybe memorable, so
Yeah. Is that kind of the plan going forward for you in terms of what your initiatives are on the horizon? Are you trying to focus on co-working spaces?
I'm focusing on building this into a business that will be saleable, and then I'll go do something
Smart.
totally different. Yeah, I get bored.
You just got me all excited. Obviously this podcast is elevate your business, and then the company Elevate and Exit, elevateandexit.com is all about helping businesses grow and sell.
Yes.
So I loved it. I didn't actually don't know that. I didn't know that was your aim here, but that's you just hit the nail on the head for the whole initiative that we're trying to do. Bringing awareness to owners and helping them plan early. And most people don't think like you.
Oh,
Most people don't think about selling until it's like, I want to sell next year.
yeah,
Why do you think that
or
is?
next week.
Right, next week.
Yeah, well, that was my intention. Originally, I thought, "Well, maybe I'll just get, some shareholders," but actually, I wanna just totally do something completely different where I don't even have to I just, put this one to bed and start something totally different. So, in the next 2 years, I intend to have 4 at least 4 locations and to
Wow.
be and to have it and potentially to package it up with some other co-working space owners who I know so that, it would be a more attractive package to someone who's looking to enter the market. Maybe, somebody who already has I actually talked to someone who knows people in Europe who have co-working spaces in Europe and are looking in the next couple years to come into the US. So something like that, if I can say, "Oh, here's 10 locations that you can
Yeah,
just hit the ground running in the Northeast," then that could be a good sale.
that is a great idea. That is brilliant.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I love it. What did you say to startup? You said that transitioning to, starting your own real estate company was not difficult because you kind of made the pivot from, working for someone else, building your book. But what about the startup costs, the organizational process, if you will, of starting a co-working space, let alone 2, 3, or 4 of them? What was that like, or what is it like?
It's, it was very nerve-wracking, and not even that's probably not the right word. I was surprised that, like, people weren't beating the door down until I found out about 6 months into it that so the first part was fun, right? I bought the building, I fixed it all up, like, worked with a branding person, and that was all really a lot of fun. And then I was like, "Okay, we're open." And I found out about 6 months in that people in this town have never heard of coworking. They had no
Oh,
idea what
no.
happens here. And even still, people come in and like, "What is this place?" And so I had to start changing my whole marketing effort, my whole way of approaching advertising and stuff to I mean, co-working is one word that if you know what it means, it explains everything, but you need a whole paragraph otherwise, so,
It's still new.
like
I mean, here in Columbus, Ohio, where we live, there's several of them, and it's commonplace. I mean, I know more people now than ever, especially since COVID, that want a place that don't have the corporate office space, but they want a place to go to work that's not in their basement, in their den. They
yeah,
want a place to call work. You know what I mean? So,
right,
but I can get that where depending on where you live, it might not might be still kind of catching on. How
yeah.
many hours would you say you put in on an average week?
Uh, well, it's getting less now. I used to be here I used to think that, like, if I left the front desk, that would be it, like, the 50 people who are gonna join this month would come during that time, and then that would be it, right? I think a lot of business owners think that way, like, I must stay right here. I remember at one point I owned a store, I had, like, a retail store, and I was like a caged animal. I would just pace around that place, like, I can't go to the post office because that's when the people are gonna come, and I can't go get my lunch because right? It's just ridiculous, so now there are people here who are always here, so if something happens, they just can handle it, and, it's much more relaxing, but I still this is my primary workplace, right? So, actually working here, maybe I need a couple hours a day, but I'm here a lot more than that because
Right.
I'm doing my real estate business or I'm doing whatever, so,
So total hours per week that you're spending working on your business or businesses or real estate all in, what do you think?
um, probably less than 40.
Okay, that's amazing.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, less
most
than
people can't say
40.
that are business owners. I think, yeah. How
I
long do you
guess I'm
think
essentially lazy, so.
would you say you're lazy? Oh my God, I highly doubt that. Um, how long would you say it took? You know what? Maybe it's promising actually. Somebody saying that they're lazy but successful. It's like, well, I'm lazy. I want to be successful. um, how long did it take to get things to where you were profitable enough to where you could feel like you could relax?
That was a solid year and a half.
Year and a half? Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty quick
Yeah.
though.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, there isn't a ton of overhead here once you get everything set up. It's just food, basically food and
Right.
beverages and, because we people who join get their coffee and snacks and stuff like that free. So we spend a lot of money on food and then just the building and utilities and stuff like that. So it's not a very intensive, cost-wise type of business. Um
Do you have employees?
I did. I used to have, at one time I had a couple of interns, which I loved. They were so good. They were so cute together. They were awesome. And then when they left, when they went back to school, I tried to hire a couple of other people and it didn't work out. And I realized that I really don't need anybody here right now.
Mhm.
Once I have a couple of locations, I'll want to have somebody else who's like, making the rounds and taking care of everything. But I don't actually need somebody sitting at the front desk all day. So even when I've gone on vacation, I went away for 2.5 weeks this past year, and I just had people dropping in, like, one of the people that comes here all the time clean the coffee machine for me, and then, I had people dropping in to take care of the virtual mail service and stuff, but it didn't, like my mom and a couple of friends were able to handle it, so
That's
it
nice.
just
Yeah.
isn't worth it right this minute, but in the future, it will be.
You said you went from negative net worth at 50 to seven-figure net worth pretty quickly. It sounds like. What I mean, how many real estate properties, rentals do you own now? And you have just the one co-working space so far. Is that right?
Right, I have one co-working space so far, and I pretty much during COVID, I sold a lot of stuff that I had that
Hmm.
was just the prices I felt were a little nutty, so I just said,
Smart.
"Okay, time to go." Yeah, so right now, I basically have all my eggs in the co-working basket,
I gotcha.
but that's gonna change because this year I'm gonna buy at least 1 or 2 more multifamily properties or commercial. So one thing I'm working on is, commercial real estate, I don't know how it is in your area, but here it's quite inexpensive, people are just like they've given up their offices. Nobody wants them. So I'm working on some ideas of things that you can do in a former office space that will be sort of like a cookie cutter kind of thing. Like you can go in, buy a certain square footage, and then turn it into like there's a model out there already with salons. So people buy
Yeah.
the space and then they rent this one's for a masseuse and this one's for a whatever, and then it becomes like a little salon,
Yeah, like a spa.
like a spa. Yeah, like but instead of being a spa where one person controls the whole thing, it's just a real estate investor has the space and it's really just like a traditional office rental, except they're not office people, they're,
Yeah.
spa sort of
Like,
people. And I feel like there are other industries that could lend themselves to those. So I want to start doing that. So it'll either be a residential or commercial, depending on what I feel like is a good deal in that moment in time when I decide I'm ready to do it. So
yeah, commercial real estate around us in Central Ohio, I think has really been anchored by the fact that we have Intel coming in. I mean, just an
mhm.
enormous Intel plant coming in here, and then we've got a Honda subsidiary coming in, EV stuff. I mean, Columbus, for some reason, I don't know, give it, I guess, credit to our governor, I suppose,
Yeah,
is bringing in a lot of business. So our real estate market has just continued to grow. It doesn't really seem like there's all that much issue there, but commercial you would think would be a problem, and I still think there's going to be a problem. When I say problem, I think opportunity, of course, but
yeah,
I,
exactly.
I think that when what most people don't realize is when larger corporations sign leases, they don't sign a 5-year lease. They're signing a 10-year lease, a 15-year lease. So it's the year 2025 now, right? We're about to walk into February. There was companies that signed leases or lease extensions, we'll say, in 2019, 2018, 2015, that aren't going to expire until, like, let's just say they renewed a 10-year lease in 2015. I mean,
Yeah,
those leases are going to expire this year. If they had a
right.
15-year lease that they started in 2015, that's easy math, right? I mean,
Yeah,
2030. So I think we're
yeah,
probably over the course of the next 5 to 10 years, even, but probably mostly in the next five, going to see a lot of companies that they're going hybrid first. Now they're saying we're going to come back to work, and it's like, well, yeah, we're going to come back to work for now, but I mean, once that lease
because
is
we've got
up,
this big space we're paying
yeah,
for, so
it's
we
like
might as well.
why would they pay the overhead if work from home worked before? Like, who cares? So I think
Exactly.
there's probably going to be a surge in supply, especially in some of the larger spaces,
Yeah,
and opportunities there. It's a Class B, Class A trophy space probably as well, but we'll see.
yeah,
I mean, I'm not a real estate expert, but I dabble in a lot of investment areas. So anyway,
yeah.
um,
There are some people who are saying that in the next 3 years that, I think, I don't know, 65 or 70% of the leases are gonna come due
oh wow,
for
yeah, I'd
commercial.
love to
Yeah,
find
so
that stat.
there's a potential for some real softening of the market if some of these big companies or even mid-sized companies don't renew their leases.
On changing gears a little bit here, what would you say has been the thing you like most about doing your own thing, running your own company, having this real estate? Is it the freedom, I assume? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah, I mean, most entrepreneurs will tell you that we're just unemployable now. Like, we could never go
Yeah.
back and take orders from someone else, and, when something doesn't work, everybody has worked for a company where something didn't work, right? There's some politics or there's some person or there's some procedure that it's silly. And you just like, well, this is silly. This isn't working. But you can't do anything about it because it's not your deal, right? It's not your job. You just got to suck it up. Well, we never have to do that. As entrepreneurs, we're just like, well, this doesn't work. Let's rip it out and do it again. And I enjoy being in control of my own destiny in that way, right? If I screw up, I have screwed up. No one screwed me up,
Yeah.
right? I did it myself. And now, hey, that was a great learning experience. Let's do something else. And I even realize when I go look at properties now, how much more discerning I am. I went to look at this place the other day. Was it gorgeous? Like an old Victorian home, so beautiful. I mean, yes, the roof had been leaking, and because it was for a foreclosure, the roof had been leaking. It had some issues, but I wasn't worried about that. The thing that really turned me off about the property was there are only 2 parking spaces. So this is an
Oh,
8-bedroom, 5-bath property with 2 parking spaces, and I thought,
wow.
what could I do here? Right? What could I do even if I wanted to divide it up into condos or do something with it? With 2 parking spaces, what am I gonna do? So, it went out for auction and I didn't bid on it, but I'm gonna go back if it comes back up, because I don't know if anybody bid on it. If it comes back up, I'm gonna go look at it again because I wanna see if there's a way to excavate the backyard, because right now the backyard is basically behind a retaining wall. It's like a 4 feet above the street level, so you'd have to really get in there and, dig a lot of stuff up, but that's the only thing that I think would make that a successful endeavor, and where in the past I would've been like, "Oh, look at the beautiful woodworking, look at the beautiful," "Look at the high ceilings, oh, it's so beautiful," and it is beautiful, but
Right.
now I'm thinking, "Okay, but is it really, does it make sense? How are you gonna make money here?" So
A
I'm
lot more
glad to see it.
calculated in your decision making. Yeah.
Yeah, a little more discerning. I still do dumb things, but at least
Yeah.
that
Don't
little.
we all? Yeah. What would you say what do you like what do you dislike most? So what do you like the least about being an entrepreneur running your own company? Is there anything?
Yeah, I think so because I actually am at the point in my life now, I'm 62 years old. So this never, or else be 62 in July. This never has happened before. But I'm at the point now where I actually would like to have a business partner, right? To somebody who
Yeah.
has a nice complementary set of skills and personality traits to where we could really collaborate and we could like brainstorm and have all these great ideas. I have a lot of mastermind groups that I'm a part of, but it isn't really the same type of thing as it would be like, hey, let's figure out our marketing campaign for the next year and let's sit down here and do this. Like doing all that stuff yourself, it's easy for me to get distracted
Oh,
and
yeah.
right. And so all my own biases, like, oh, I don't like doing XYZ, so we won't do that this year, right? It'd be much better for me to have someone say, we gotta do that because it makes a lot of sense. And let's do some analysis. So, oh no. Right. So yeah, I that's one thing is just the solopreneur nature of it. I'd kind of like to be a dulopreneur, dulopreneur.
Yeah, well, Dan Sullivan talks a lot about, focusing on your unique ability, when you're whatever it is you're doing. So I think that, or the E-Myth, right? The E-Myth talks about how you can either be two of, but not three. You can be the entrepreneur, the manager, or the technical worker, and you can be up to two of those people, but not all three. And we all are, for me, I'm the entrepreneur technical worker. I'm a terrible manager. I'm too nice. I want everybody to like me. I'm definitely not good at the whole employee review thing. Like I don't like it at all. But anyway, I just think that having a partner, which is very brave, by the way, brave of you, because you're letting go of a certain amount of control, and I think that's probably a problem that a lot of entrepreneurs have, is that they love that control. I mean, aside from the freedom, it's like it's my baby. I get to do what I want when I want with who I want.
Right.
So that's interesting. What would you say have been the toughest times when you look back at your career? The toughest times as a business owner. What happened? What'd you do to pivot? What'd you learn from the experience?
I've discovered through the years that all of my challenges are due to mindset. So whenever
Okay.
something happens where I'm just like, "Oh my god, there's all these roadblocks and why isn't anything working?" and I'm getting frustrated, I've learned to say, "Okay, how is this your fault?" Right? And if I change my mindset and I change my assumptions and I allow myself to take the next big step, right? All that drama. Whenever there's drama, I'm like, "Uh-oh, uh-oh, it's time to take another really big leap in my evolution." So those have been tough when I'm bumping up against a new version of myself that maybe is a little scary. And once I can get beyond that, once I can sort of say, "Okay, yep, this is stop sabotaging yourself now because you are gonna take this leap and you are gonna succeed and it's definitely a thing." And like the imposter syndrome and all that stuff, it is a thing and it can block us from making a step that we need to make because we're just without realizing it, we're just causing ourselves problems.
To what would you say you attribute the success that you've achieved in life and in business?
I guess in a word, it would be probably persistence because once I figured out that you don't do something once and discover that you can't, you don't fail at something once and then just say, "Oh, that's it. I suck at that. Let's do something different." Right? I did that like a whole bunch of times. And I was like, well, now I'm going back to the thing I really love, which is real estate. And I'm just going to keep doing it until I get it right. And that turned out to be the best thing.
Persistence.
Yeah, just persistence. I mean, in a word. And also persistence and masterminding and things like that, like you're listening to other people's ideas and not you have to do what other people say, but when you share something and they give you a piece of advice that you can actually listen to it. And a friend of mine coach each other. We're both professional coaches and we coach each other. And it's just such a valuable time. Yourself, getting a coach, someone who's got the big picture, who can see that 50,000-mile view or 50,000 feet, I guess.
Yeah, 50,000 miles might be a lot, but that's all right. I know what you're
That'd be
at.
a pretty
We'll say
small view.
30,000
But
is that's the cliche, 30,000
yeah,
feet, right? Mhm.
yeah, the 30,000-foot view. And that person, that kind of feedback is really just so helpful, and as a younger person, I could not hear it. I was the only one who knew it. I was the only one who was gonna be able to make this succeed. You people don't know what you're talking about. So, yeah, listen, 2 ears and a mouth for a reason.
Right, seriously. Are
Yeah.
you much of a reader? Are
I
you
love to read,
do
yeah,
you? Are you
yeah.
more of like a fiction reader? Do you read any business books, anything like that?
Yeah, both. I usually
Both.
have one of each going at any given time. Right now, which is probably gonna be your next question, and you talk about Dan Sullivan. Right now, I'm reading 10X is Better Than 2X.
Ooh, oh my god. What a great book.
Yeah, and
That
I said to
book,
myself, could this apply to coworking? And then I realized it definitely does, so I've
yeah.
sort of changed my marketing. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
And I was just gonna say 10X is Easier Than 2X is, like, literally one of the top books I've ever read, in my life. I mean, the first half changed my life, and then the second half, I just wanted it to be over with so I could go implement the first half. The other one he wrote was, Who Not How is another good one, which is, I think, crucial for any business owner, especially the control freaks. I think that's important. So I was just gonna ask you, what's your single favorite book? So you're reading 10X is Easier Than 2X by Dan Sullivan right now. What's your
Yeah.
favorite book of all time? Do you have one that you can put your finger on?
The book that I keep reading is Think and Grow Rich. I read a couple
Yeah.
pages of that every night. And that there are a lot of books that you can read later that basically say the same thing in a different way. And you hear phrases and quotes in there that someone has pulled out and made a whole book out of, like the Go Giver, that's in Think and Grow Rich. And it is a philosophy that you could just take it and expand on it. And every time I read it, and I know a lot of people say this, every time you read it, you see something new, you hear something new, you interpret something a different way. And so I do like a couple pages a night just to kind of keep myself into that. Like I like books about how like different ways to think about your marketing, different ways to think about
Oh,
connecting
yeah.
with people and things like that. And um ideas that stick. That's the one I was thinking of. That
Oh,
that's
yeah,
a
I've heard of
that's
that.
a
I haven't
great
read
book.
that one. Is it
Yeah,
good?
that's a great book. It's got some really good ideas in it and it just makes you think a different way, which is what I love to do.
What about, goals going out in the future? I mean, you said you're turning 62 here. You've amassed a pretty, sizable net worth. You got a great income going on. Obviously, you wanna put together probably another 3 or 4 or more, maybe 10 co-working spaces, perhaps buy some commercial real estate. But specifically, do you have any goals you've set out? I mean, those are ideas you've thrown around, but are there any specific goals, by this age or within this many years, 5 years, we'll call it, I want to be here or I want these things?
Yeah, and it's not really about things for me. It's more about, traveling. Like
Oh, for
this year,
sure.
one of my goals is that I have to be on a plane at least once a month. So,
Haha.
so make a plan, go and meeting new people and learning new things. So I joined a choir, like a rock voices kind of choir, and I'm taking dancing lessons, like that kind of stuff, like to make me what I feel is a more interesting person. Um, and
Yeah,
I also want to and from the partnership perspective, I'd like to attract a business partner and attract a life partner. Could be the same person, doesn't have to be. So those are some kind of things. But my business goals are also very specific, but and we mostly talked about all that stuff. So yeah, I have
yeah.
some really, personal goals like fitness, things
Oh
and
God, you and me
uh,
both. I feel like they don't change much. Uh, it's terrible. What about, for those that are looking to start a business, what advice would you give them? If they were to ask, I don't wanna say a single biggest piece of advice, but it could be 1, 2, 3, whatever. Like, what would you tell them about, what helped you succeed and what they should do?
There are two things that people do wrong. One is that they just jump in and be like, and this is what I always did. I'm just going to start this business. So I'm just going to, there it is. I've got the sign up. I'm going to do it. This is my business. And that's not that smart because you don't know a darn thing about it. You have no clue. Like when I started my importing business, I was just like, I was in Morocco on vacation and I decided I wanted to become an importer. So I like threw a bunch of stuff in a box and brought it home. I mean, did not know anything. Had never even been to a trade show before. Didn't have any idea how to sell things wholesale. It was just like, oh, this sounds like fun. I'll go do that. So maybe not the best thing to do. But on the other side, there's the analysis paralysis where you just spend
Mm,
years and years and years doing business plans and analyzing and learning and you have to implement. So in there is a middle ground. Set yourself a deadline. I'm going to research this for 3 months, 6 months, and then I'm going to do it and then do it because there are some mistakes you can't learn out of a book. There's some things you just have to screw up and learn from. And yeah, so I would use the Nike advice of just do it.
just do it. Yeah. Execute. Yeah, you can go over your priorities, you can reprioritize them, you can redo your calendar a million times, but if you don't actually go out there and get uncomfortable, not a lot's going to happen really. In fact, one of my favorite quotes is if you have more than 3 priorities, you don't have any priorities. It's so
Yeah, and the
true.
other one is all the growth is outside your comfort zone, like all
Yeah,
the
that's a
good
good
stuff
one.
happens right outside your comfort zone, so
Yeah,
get out of it.
all the growth is outside your comfort zone.
Yeah.
I've got to figure out who said that quote.
Yeah, it might not be exactly right, but, I know Brian Tracy has a similar quote. If I didn't quote it exactly right, which is very possible, it's the sort of that idea. So start with him, I think he might have said that.
Yeah, I'll look it up. And then the other one I love is the CEO of LinkedIn that starting a business is like jumping off a cliff and building a plane on the way down. That's a fun one. You get the good
Exactly.
visual. All right. Well, so for those people who already have a business, they're already running it. I don't know. Their success level may be varied, but they're feeling stuck. They plateaued. And we've all been there. If we've been running a business long enough, we've all been there. What advice would you give them to get unstuck?
A fun idea would be so one thing they could do is they could talk to you about, "Hey, maybe we could sell this thing and do something different."
Hmm,
Right? What are our options along those lines? Because maybe it's just that particular industry isn't as fun as it used to be.
yeah,
But
good
another
point.
thing yeah, and another thing they could do is a book like 10x is better than 2x will force you to see where is the top 20%, right? Who are our best customers that are giving us the most amount of money? And maybe we could completely reimagine this business with those people as our top clientele, and that could maybe because it's probably gonna be a niche, it could be more challenging, could be more interesting, could be more fun and dynamic. So those are 2 ideas.
Yeah.
Um,
That's great. That's great advice. I've
yeah.
never had somebody say, think about selling it and moving on, doing something different. I think that people think that's really scary, but I think it's brave, obviously, but it makes a lot of sense. Why not take all that pent up, kinetic energy and, put it into something else that you're really, really passionate about if you're kind of done with what you've been doing. That makes sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, you get into maintenance mode, and if you're an entrepreneur, maintenance mode is boring. Right? So either
Oh,
make it so
yeah.
that you can get out of your business, right? Someone else is doing all the day-to-day stuff and you don't have to, right? Work on your business, not in your business. But another could be just like let somebody else do your thing and you do something different.
Yeah. That makes sense. Well, your journey is obviously a testament to resilience for sure. The power of, you mentioned persistence. I would also add hard work and resilience and consistency, probably. For those looking to follow in your footsteps that are listening to this, watching this, what final piece of advice would you share? If you had somebody sitting around a campfire with a glass of wine, what would it be? What would you want to share with them?
Try just try it. I mean, just if there's something that you've thought of doing more than 3 times, then just you really need to do it. You need to look into it, you need to discover it. I mean, it's one thing if you just drive by a billboard and say, "Oh, yeah, that might be fun." But if an idea keeps percolating, and I say 3 times or more, then just look into it. Just talk to some people who do that. Just find a mentor, right? Find somebody who can help you to take that dream and turn it into a place where you can imagine it as a reality, right? Where you can think that it could actually be a reality.
I would add that there's no shortage of people out there who, to get where they are today, worked with others who were mentors that gave the shirts off their back to help them get there, and that as a result that they're willing to give their shirts off their back to help others as well. And I'm one of those people. I'm sure you are too. So
Yeah,
I think that's wonderful
definitely.
advice. Well, If you're feeling inspired, which you should be, I love that. If you thought about it 3 times, check into it. But if you're inspired and having anything to do with real estate investing, the co-working spaces, things like that, connect with Christine on LinkedIn. You can also go to Chris McCarron. It's Chris, ChrisMcCarron.com. You can also find all these links in the show notes as well. But Christine, thank you so much for joining me. This is a lot of fun. I loved hearing your story. But at this point, we're out of time. And as I always say, there's thousands and thousands of podcasts out there. You gave ours a chance today. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Adam.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. To complete our free business valuation quiz or to set up an introduction call, just head over to elevateandexit.com. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal, financial, tax, or as a basis for investment decisions. Always consult a professional business transition planning consultant or a certified exit planning advisor before implementing any of the ideas shared in this episode.